Ever notice how even in books, like you think, like Frankenstein, there are all these hidden depths waiting to be explored?
Oh, absolutely.
You might think it's all about the monster, right?
Right.
But what about the family drama like simmering beneath the surface?
Yeah.
That's what we're diving into today.
Okay.
Those crucial opening pages of Frankenstein that set the stage for everything that follows.
Yeah, what's so fascinating is how much Shelley packs into seemingly simple introductions.
Right.
It's like she's building this whole world, right, of tangled relationships and histories before the monster even comes into the picture.
It's true. We're talking family secrets, surprising connections.
Yeah.
It's a whole saga
That's
unfolding
absolutely.
right there in the first chapter.
And it's essential we pay attention because these characters aren't starting from scratch.
Right.
They're carrying the weight of their pasts,
Oh, yeah.
shaped by events that happened long before the story even begins.
Right from the start, we hear from our narrator, Victor Frankenstein.
Yeah.
He paints this picture of his family as, like, pillars of Genevan society.
Right.
Aristocratic, devoted to public service. You get the sense they're at the top of their game.
And Shelley is very deliberate in establishing this background, I think.
Okay.
It's important to remember the novel was published in 1818,
Okay.
a time when social class and family reputation were everything.
Yeah.
Like your family name was your brand,
Wow.
you know.
So Victor's coming from a place of privilege, at least on paper. But then he drops this detail about his dad.
Okay.
His father didn't marry until later in life.
Interesting.
That might seem insignificant, but it really makes you wonder
Sure.
what does that tell us about his character?
It's our first clue that personal histories matter in this book.
Okay.
Think about it. Victor's very existence hinges on this delayed marriage, which was less common back then.
Right.
What kind of man chooses to wait?
Mm-hmm.
What does it say about his priorities, his experiences?
Now that is an intriguing detail.
Right.
And speaking of intriguing characters,
Okay.
let's talk about Buford.
Okay.
Victor's father's closest friend.
Mhm.
The guy goes from riches to rags.
Yeah.
Tragic downfall, no doubt.
Wow.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Buford would rather scrape by in poverty than let his former circles see him lose his status.
Oh, wow.
Now that's intense.
Intense. It's practically Shakespearean.
Yeah.
Remember what we said about social class and reputation?
Right.
Buford embodies that.
Yeah.
He's so tied to his social standing that it's almost inseparable from his identity.
Wow.
And this choice, traumatic as it is, sets off a chain of events that impacts everyone.
You said it. Talk about a ripple effect.
Right.
Now Buford's daughter, Caroline,
Okay.
she's a different story altogether.
Okay.
Instead of falling apart after her father's downfall, she picks herself up and gets to work. Talk about resilience.
Right.
But here's a question for you.
Okay.
Victor's father is drawn to both Buford and Caroline.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of that?
Yeah.
What does that tell us about them, and what does it tell us about him?
It's such a fascinating dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have Buford clinging to past glory and Carolyn actively building a new future.
Right.
And she's not your typical damsel in distress either.
Right.
Her resilience sets her apart from the usual tropes of the time.
Yeah.
Even Victor's parents' marriage is unusual.
Okay.
There's the age gap, of course, but also this undercurrent of rescuing and gratitude.
Right.
It makes you wonder how that dynamic might shape Victor.
Wow. I never thought about it like that, but it makes total sense.
Yeah,
And it's all right there in the first few pages.
I know.
Shelley was laying down some serious groundwork.
Absolutely. And we're just getting started.
Oh, boy.
Remember Elizabeth?
Oh, yeah, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Just as we're settling into Victor's family, Shelley introduces another key player.
And trust me, Elizabeth's arrival is anything but simple.
So we've got Victor's parents, their lives like deeply intertwined with Buford and his, dramatic fall from grace. And then into this complex family dynamic walks Elizabeth.
And her entrance is anything but ordinary.
Understatement of the century. Picture this. The Frankensteins are on this grand tour of Europe,
Okay.
known for their charitable acts, which, by the way, totally echoes Caroline's own past, right?
Right.
They come across this impoverished cottage and boom, there she is, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And her description. Practically angelic, radiating beauty standing out from all the other children. It's clear Shelley wants us to take notice.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't just some random orphan they stumble upon.
You're absolutely right. Shelley's tapping into a classic literary trope here.
Oh, okay.
The foundling child.
Right.
Elizabeth's origins are shrouded in mystery, immediately setting her apart from other children.
Yeah.
She's got that almost fairy tale-like quality. The more beautiful than thou, child, which often hints at a greater destiny, a higher purpose.
Which, knowing how things eventually unfold in Frankenstein, makes her fate even more tragic.
Right. Precisely. That's the brilliance of Shelley's foreshadowing.
Yeah.
It makes you consider Elizabeth's story with a sense of foreboding.
It's heartbreaking. And on that note, we learn about Elizabeth's own father,
Okay.
an Italian nationalist fighting for freedom,
Hmm.
another idealist who ends up suffering for his beliefs. Just like Buford, am I the only one seeing a pattern here? Two fathers in this story, both driven by strong principles. It can't just be a coincidence.
You're picking up on a crucial theme here.
Okay.
Idealism versus reality.
Okay.
Both Buford and Elizabeth's father had these noble goals,
Right.
but those ambitions led to suffering for their children. Shelley seems to be warning us about the dangers of unchecked ambition, a theme that echoes throughout Frankenstein, especially with Victor and his relentless pursuit of knowledge.
It sends shivers down my spine. It's
Yeah.
like Shelley is subtly setting up these cautionary tales from the very beginning.
Right.
But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about Elizabeth's place within the Frankenstein family.
Okay.
They bring her home, and Victor's mother playfully refers to Elizabeth as a present for him.
Right.
And young Victor, well, he takes it literally.
That seemingly innocent comment speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It reflects societal norms of the time, of course, but it also foreshadows the intense bond Victor and Elizabeth will develop.
Right.
And let's be honest, there's a slightly unsettling undertone to it,
Yeah.
especially knowing how Victor's need for control plays out later in the story.
Slightly unsettling is putting it mildly, especially with how possessive Victor becomes fixated on Elizabeth as mine. Not a good look.
Exactly. Possession, both literal and figurative,
Yep.
is a huge theme in the book.
Right.
And it goes beyond romantic love.
Okay.
Victor's desire to control, to possess, extends to his scientific pursuits, to the very act of creation itself.
You know, it's almost as if he views Elizabeth as just another experiment, something he can control and manipulate.
Right.
And we all know how well that turns out.
And that's a perfect example of how Shelley seamlessly weaves these complex themes into seemingly ordinary interactions.
Yeah.
She invites us to consider, what are the boundaries of creation?
Right.
What are the consequences of trying to possess that which we cannot truly own?
Before we move on to the elephant, or rather the creature, in the room,
So to speak.
isn't it wild to think that even before the monster appears, there's already so much loss and upheaval in these characters' lives?
Yeah.
Buford's downfall, Elizabeth's orphan status, this strange possessive vibe between her and Victor.
Right.
This isn't just a story about a science experiment gone wrong.
Right.
It's about how our pasts shape us, the weight of expectations and the unintended consequences, even those born from good intentions.
It's as though these characters are already caught in a web of destiny, long before Victor even creates the monster.
Yeah.
Their pasts are so deeply intertwined with their presence, shaping their choices and relationships in ways they might not even realize.
It's true. We often think of Victor's creation as this, isolated act of hubris.
Right.
But you're right.
Yeah,
It's
no.
not happening in a vacuum.
It's not.
It's built on this foundation of loss, ambition, and these seemingly idyllic family portraits that are just waiting to be disrupted.
Exactly. And that's why focusing solely on the monster misses the bigger picture of Frankenstein.
Right.
It's the human drama,
Yeah.
the flaws of these characters and the echoes of their pasts that make it resonate with us, even centuries later.
You know what? It's making me think about those literary analysis papers from back in college.
Oh, yeah.
There's just so much to unpack here.
Right.
But there's one thing we haven't discussed yet.
Okay.
Something I think is incredibly important.
What's that?
We've spent a lot of time on Victor and his side of the family.
Right.
But what about Elizabeth?
Yeah.
I mean, this girl lost her parents, her country, her entire world before she was even 10 years old. How do you think those experiences shaped her?
That's a brilliant observation, and you're right.
Yeah.
Elizabeth's losses are often overshadowed by Victor's actions, but they're just as significant, if not more so.
Right.
She's often seen as a symbol of innocence and purity,
Right.
but there's a depth to her character that we don't always explore.
Exactly. Think about the strength it must have taken to endure what she did, the resilience she had to develop at such a young age. It makes you wonder, did Shelley subtly set up Elizabeth as the true tragic figure in Frankenstein?
It's definitely a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
After all, she bears the weight not only of her own losses, but also the consequences of Victor's actions.
It's a lot to carry.
It is.
For anyone,
Yeah.
let alone a young woman who has already been through so much.
And it speaks to the genius of Shelley's writing, would you say?
Oh, yeah.
Her ability to create these multifaceted characters whose depths we're still exploring centuries later is just remarkable.
It really is food for thought.
It is.
So next time someone tries to tell you that Frankenstein is just, simple horror story,
Right.
hit them with some of this deep dive knowledge, right?
There you go.
Family drama, societal critique, the dangers of unchecked ambition. Shelley was serving up like serious intellectual food for thought alongside those gothic thrills.
She certainly was. And it's a feast that continues to nourish our minds and imaginations to this day.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the fascinating world of Frankenstein.
Okay.
But don't worry, we'll be back soon to uncover more hidden depths from your favorite books, articles, and more.
Sounds good.
Until then, happy reading.